What made you suddenly lose interest in someone you were pursuing? After dating a woman for a few months, I took her out for breakfast on her birthday with plans to see her again that night. She went completely off the radar only to emerge the next day to confess that she had spent the night in jail for violating the restraining order placed upon her after assaulting her previous boyfriend. Hit the eject button pronto. Never looked back. I was completely caught off guard because she held a very prestigious job, had extensive real estate holdings, and presented as squeaky clean. Context can be important. I caught my ex cheating, so I filed for divorce, so it put her green card she used me for in jeopardy. Her only option was to accuse me of being abusive so she can say that was the reason we divorced. She got a restraining order on me, and since the courthouse was about a 3-minute drive from our apartment, she waited until I was at court getting the terms of the restraining order fixed because she made it so I couldn't even get any of my clothes or belongings from the apartment, even if I was with a cop, and we scheduled me going there. And she called the police and said I was driving by the apartment looking for her. She even had her friend over that day to be a witness. So I was violated and almost arrested for it. Luckily, I went for a walk after court to get something to eat and took a picture of something. The timestamp in the picture made it impossible for me to have been where she said I was at the time she said I was there. So instead of charging her with a false accusation, they just chalked it up to my car being a common model and her getting confused. But yeah, basically I had a bull restraining order put on me with absolutely no proof, and then had it used to try and put me in jail. I was able to prove her accusations wrong and get everything dropped. Brought a kid she never mentioned on a Tinder date. I'm 18. I caught a girl tampering with the condom the first time we slept together. I tried to be humorous about it to see if there was somehow a logical explanation. Give me a break. I was young and really into the girl and didn't want to blow it up over nothing. Obviously, now that I'm older, I know there's no reasonable explanation to something like that, and it's just inviting a chance to lie about it, but she just straight up said she didn't think I'd be willing to try for a baby yet, so took matters into her own hands. I'd been on like 3 dates with her, I think, though granted we had known each other for like 4 or 5 years. When he stopped talking to me after I didn't send him nudes. Turns out he asks multiple girls for nudes, then sells the pictures to some of his friends. A complete human garbage, if you ask me. But a common friend of mine, and his the one who introduced him to me, and the one who in the end explained to me the whole intention of that human trash. But he did it only after the latter stopped talking to me, said that he has a kind of power trip getting nudes of women that have no internet presence whatsoever. Says that it equals to popping the cherry of said girl. Sadly, his friends, including this one, share the same mentality. Never talk to this friend again. I edit this because now I realized I sound ambiguous. What I mean with no internet presence is when a girl doesn't have pictures of her published in any social media. I don't have Instagram or pictures of me on the internet, so I guess I qualified. One night stand developed into dating. Potentially serious, then I find out she's married. Then she tells me she's pregio, and that her husband had a vasectomy several years earlier. Then she kinda disappears. Background: we lived in different cities, and later I moved out of state. She made one call when I moved to WA, then never called again. On one of out weekends she dropped the married and pregnant thing. Once she did that, I told her I'd take care of the child, and we could explore us if she decided to divorce. That's when she told me she had terminated the pregnancy. She was from a tight-knit Portuguese community, so afraid of having the scarlet letter. I really wish the pregnancy wasn't true, and she was just saying that for reaction. By disappeared, I mean she just stopped contact. I could have sought her out as her community was relatively small, as was the town she lived in, but I did not want to cause more problems for her. They started flirting with my best friend. My sister was in this situation with her kid's father and long-term boyfriend. Her best friend, I've known forever, and him hooked up. He was a serial cheater, and my sister has zero self-worth. So unsurprisingly, they repeatedly hooked up somewhere between together or the on a break area. Or together, I'm unsure. My sister knew he was cheating again, yet again. He lied about it. The best friend felt so guilty after about 6 months of this and told my sister. Fast forward, my sister and baby daddy broke up for good, and he got with the best friend forever. Still together going on 4 years, and last year got engaged. Bless the best friend forever for being the side chick. My sister is better off. She's stupid as but deserves better. Told her best friend forever, listen, you're the person he cheated with, don't be surprised when you're the one being cheated on. I really won't feel bad for you. You absolutely deserve it. He's a prick. Stop being a compost for your friend's sloppy seconds. Honestly, I'm not sorry I'm the least for those words. I'm a cuntris chocked full of harsh honesty. Don't like it. Too bad, bye. She disappeared for about a month and showed up looking horrible. Lost so much weight I hardly recognized her. Found out that she was left 20 Kelvin by her dad and received it. She was a crackhead and spent it all. Didn't spend a penny on her 2 young children either. Just left them with her mom and went partying. Bad planning on her dad's part. With some proper estate planning, they could have set up a trust with incentives, limits based on her sobriety and other factors. It's not entirely uncommon, and it's worth talking about with an attorney while setting up a will. I work with folks with disabilities, and it's fairly common to set up a special needs trust or other type of trust plus specialized bank accounts so that a person with special needs always gets the support they require and can have access to some funds for spending money on just non-necessities. Went to surprise her for her birthday 3 days after she randomly showed up at my apartment saying she had broke up with her long-term boyfriend all through high school. We kissed at my place. When I got to her dorm room to surprise her, the ex-boyfriend was in her bed, under the covers, and appeared to be naked, at least from the shoulders up. Pretty much just dropped the present I had gotten her and turned around walking away. I went to go visit a friend I knew was at the same college. I had driven an hour. He was busy writing a paper but said I should go visit his little sister who I hadn't seen in over a year. She was at the same college. He gave me directions to her dorm. 27 years later, my friend's little sister and I have 4 kids and been married over 23 years. He genuinely referred to himself as an alpha male, and then continued to tell me how much women ed while we were at a concert with a woman opener. It's typical that people keep using the terminology from bad and retracted research on wolves in captivity. The same type of errors gave us vaccines cause autism. I prefer to think of it as using software terminology. Alpha is the first type of version where the software is missing features and is riddled with bugs, and generally unstable alpha version. Also, woman opener is about as bad as using females to refer to women. If we want people to avoid using females, we should also avoid using the of woman opener. We can use with a woman opening, or with a woman as an opener, or female opener. We can be better than them. Insanely attracted to this girl in high school. She was smart and beautiful. She was a cellist and I was learning the violin. We had both decided religion was BS. We both really liked literature. We had tons to talk about and do together. She seemed so sweet. I felt like we were vibing. When I drove her around on our first date, she screamed at everyone on the road. She rolled the windows down and leaned out the car because a dude did a complete stop at a stop sign. It was like that the entire way. Maybe she was stressed. Hangry. We did a duet in the park and went for a walk. She was perfect, witty, charming, had a good sense of humor. The first girl I was interested in that could run circles around me in a conversation. I was smitten all over again. The amount of rage on the way home had me wanting to trade my car in. No. He made excuses for everything. We could not have one conversation where he did not blame someone else for his own. Dropped out of college. Well, it was a stupid degree anyways. His teachers were unfair to him specifically. Higher education as a whole is a scam. Never had a job at almost 24 plus years old. Well, it's his mom's fault for not getting him used to working at a young age. Can't pay for his half of the date. His bummy friends must have ripped him off. We're playing video games and he dies. It's my fault. Our teammates' faults. The game is dumb. He's lagging. His controller died. I very quickly realized that this inability to acknowledge his mistakes or shortcomings would bleed into the relationship. I could not see myself with someone who acted that way long term, so I dipped out and encouraged him to do some real introspection. His response, of course, was that I clearly didn't like him that much and didn't try enough. Yeah, shocking. He was way too horny. He turned every joke or sweet convo into something Yule, which really put me off. My husband does this too, and I honestly can't stand it. It's so exhausting hearing a Yule innuendo when I say something. He is incredibly touchy at inappropriate times, will ask for no matter what the situation is, and sometimes gets upset or mad if I say no. What I really don't like is him humping me when I'm bent over, especially if our children are around. I was in a bad depressive episode one time a while back. I was laying in bed in absolute tears, so deep in a dark hole, trying to talk to him about how I was feeling at the time, how I'm struggling really bad to get through this. And all he cared about was at the time. He got mad at me for not wanting to have, instead of comforting me in any way. At that point, it had been a few days since last intercourse. I've tried to approach this subject to him many times in many ways, but he will either dwell on it or chill out for a short while. But he always goes back to the same habit. Please tell me not every guy is like this. He was being really touchy-feely in front of my friends and his friends, and he knew that made me uncomfortable. I was telling him to knock it off with increasing seriousness. He finally went too far and I yelled at him stop. And I spent the next 15 minutes trying to cheer him up because he felt bad and was all mopey, and we were at my place so I couldn't just leave. The whole situation had the vibe. I had this experience with a longtime friend a while ago. He was getting more and more into the dating coach rubbish about 8 years or so ago, but I was letting it go and ignoring it. Then he pushed my then girlfriend into the pool. When she said she didn't want to go all the way in, she was so upset she left. I looked at my friend differently at that moment. Why would you do that? At the whole party, about a day after that, I told him that I didn't like his attitude, how he had been for months, and that I really didn't want to see him if this is how he was going to be. Sat him down for a lunch, told him what he needed to do to make amends and change, or he was out. It wasn't that he defended me or my girlfriend by accident. It was just his blatant disregard for others crystallized at that very moment. Lucky, he recovered. My then girlfriend, now wife, has very little patience for him since though, and we don't see him very much at all. We met online and would talk for hours on a daily basis. After 2 years, he needed a place to stay, so I said he could come stay with me. It soon became clear when he arrived why I only ever saw headshots. He was morbidly obese, like 28 stone, and disabled as a result. However, by that time, there were a lot of feelings involved, and I love people for who they are, not what they look like. So we made a go of it for 2 years. In that time, I was working full-time on the phones for a charity. When I came home, he wouldn't let me have a moment's peace and quiet, which is what I needed after a stressful day at work. Instead, he had to hold my hand constantly and would talk non-stop. I mean, I get he was on his own all day, but he would also be constantly messaging while I was at work, so I had no escape. I literally became his full-time carer on top of working 45+ hours a week. I tried desperately to help him lose weight, but there was always an excuse. What pushed me over the edge was when we discussed that I wanted kids. However, he felt that my lifestyle was not healthy enough to possibly raise children. I was an average and totally acceptable weight. In that moment, it became clear that he would never change. He had the nerve to criticize me when he had done nothing to improve himself, which filled me with rage. I told him it was over and he had 2 weeks to leave. He then told me he wanted to propose and that we should have kids right away. I noped right out of that relationship in an instant once he said that. To explain, I had not long come out of a very bad relationship when we met. This was about 15 years ago when I was in my early 20s and naive. Was it a stupid decision? Yes. However, it did teach me what never to allow in relationships again. So lesson learned. Kai was into this girl in my friend group in the first couple months of uni. One late night, we were all in the common room in a friend's accommodation around 1 a.m. We were playing a game of truths when she got asked to rate all the guys in the friend group by attractiveness. Our group was 11 in size with 6 guys and 5 girls. She started off with the most attractive and went down the list. It hurt as she named every other guy there, and with every pause she took, I was hoping I would just be the next guy named, and not the last. Except I was the last guy she named. Not only that though, shortly afterwards, the other 2 girls of the group present that night were asked to do the same, and I also ended up on the bottom of their lists too. I felt pretty awful that night and after. The other 2 girls' verdicts didn't help, but hearing I'm the ugliest in the group from the girl I liked really hurt a ton, and naturally I stopped trying after that. She couldn't keep her word. Anytime we agreed on something, she'd always try to get out of it. That got annoying fast. Happened with a chick I was trying to date. She seemed very interested. Always asked me to hang out and always messaged me. Whenever we had plans, she would just go ghost for the entire day. Messages would be ignored, but I would notice that she would still be active on social media. Next day would come around and she would apologize, then change the subject. I let this happen 5 times before I stopped trying. Should have taken them hint after the second time. Date like 2 or 3, she had to use the bathroom. Whatever, no biggie, it happens. Even stinking the bathroom up wouldn't have bugged me. Not flushing a substantially sized and apparently not wiping, however, was a deal breaker. Apparently there are some floaters that don't go on the first flush, so it looks like you didn't wipe or flush. Happened to me once, and my kids a few more times. I didn't believe them till I was waiting once and heard the 2 and the flush. What was left looking like just an unfinished turd. It also didn't go when I flushed it weird. Realizing that the warm feeling I got around them came from liking their affection, attention rather than out of love, and not being selfish enough to try using them for my own gain. This was basically me a couple years ago. I was inexperienced, lonely, self-esteem was and in desperate need of attention, validation, affection. Turns out I was just obsessed with the way they made me feel, which made sense since I was so incredibly obsessed and infatuated with them despite pretty much knowing nothing about them. One was a classmate in 9th grade. Another was a colleague around 2021. My daughter had surgery for a compound fracture. A guy she had only just started seeing dropped by, and while they were hugging, she farted. He didn't call again. When she told me why he hadn't been around, I literally fell out. I still bring this up. We both got a big kick out of it. I'd been dating my current boyfriend for only a few weeks when I had to have emergency abdominal surgery. He spent every day at hospital with me, even stayed with me for moral support while I was trying to do my first poo. Stayed at my apartment while I recovered. Cleaned my blood up from the floor and toilet, even helped me shower and change the sanitary pads. Heavy bleeding from the surgery. We're celebrating 4 together years soon. Maybe it was for the best that happened so soon, and he noped out. I hear that men are more likely to leave their female partners when they get sick, whereas women nurse their male partners through it. So I'd say she dodged a bullet if the dude couldn't even handle a fart. On my dating journey, I came across 2 different men who seemed proud of the fact that they barely saw their children. Instant no for me. Another guy had shockingly bad breath. I knew a guy who was proud of not seeing his child. It seemed weird to me until he explained the mother had intentionally sabotaged her birth control in order to trap him. Not sure how he did it, but he was able to get away with paying the absolute minimum in regards to child support, and wasn't forced to take any other responsibility for something he wanted no part in. She told me that because she is Hispanic and I'm white, that it's impossible for us to be together long term because our cultures can't mesh. Both of us are American born, and I learned Spanish so I could speak to her grandparents. She also thought that because I enjoyed being dominant that I got off because I'm a white man dominating a Hispanic, and that I'm secretly a racist masquerading as a nice guy. It completely turned me off that she could think something like that, and I left her 2 days later. I still loved her for a very long time after that. Kai talked to a guy for about a month, and I really liked him. We got along great, and had a lot of fun together. However, he refused to wear deodorant, not even natural deodorant, and swore up and down that your body detoxes and you stop smelling after you quit using deodorant. He even suggested I try to get off of deodorant because of how bad it supposedly is for you. He smelled horrible. I went to his house a few times and noticed that even his house, which was immaculate, smelled like him. Very strong oniony BO stench. I slept in his bed once and all I could smell was onions. He showered every day, sometimes twice a day, but started to smell horrific about midday. I just couldn't do it. If anyone's curious, I didn't notice his BO right away when we started hanging out because he wore a jacket at first, and I assume it was trapping the smell in or something, or he showered right beforehand. I don't know. Didn't notice it till after hanging out a few times. I tried to look past it for a bit after I noticed it, but it was just too bad. Also, if anyone's curious about if I brought this up to him, this was quite a few years back, and I had very minimal dating experience. I also had a harder time bringing up uncomfortable topics like this than I do now that I'm older. I did buy some natural deodorant, pretending it was for me, and suggested he try it out because I just loved the scent so much, and he still refused. So there's that. We both worked at a Hollywood video shortly after DVD rentals became a thing. That part is just context for the time period. We were both in high school, but went to different ones. She was attractive and had a wicked sense of humor. We also got along pretty well. I was planning to ask her to my school's homecoming. One Saturday morning, we were both on the opening shift. A severely mentally handicapped man came in asking for help with his watch. I tried to help him, but the thing looked pretty busted. As soon as the door closed, she let out a huge disgusted sigh and said, "God, I hate her, so gross," and then shuddered like someone had splashed her with something. My opinion of her dropped like a lead balloon. Kai saw what his life was like. We dated, very loose sense of the word, no exclusively, sanely because, at the time, both our jobs were pretty demanding. I knew he had adult kids all over the state that he would spend weekends doing things for or with them. We really clicked and spent 3 years enjoying each other's company. I moved out of state assuming we would go our separate ways. We continued to communicate, and late last year, he admitted he loved me, which I definitely did him, but I will never move back to the state he lives in. And I know asking him to move to my state, away from his kids and grandkids who he adores, is not something I was going to do. So, we get together a few months ago to talk about how we're going to orchestrate an LDR, and the entire time we were together his phone was non-stop. During the day, it was 3 job sites demanding his attention, a corporate client escalating an issue, people getting injured his day off, and he just could not get away from his phone. The evening came and his kids are blowing up his phone, asking for money, whatever, and he was texting them most of the evening, fixing their stuff. It was so crystal clear to me that there was no way he could even consider adding an LDR to his full plate. He thinks it's possible. There is no way in hell he has time or energy to do it, no matter how much he thinks he wants it. And I will not throw a monkey wrench in his life, because I know how much his family and being there for them means to him. His life needs something, but an LDR ain't it.